Like if you have a business idea, do the smallest possible next step towards it, just right away. If you think that you want to start like a new social network or something for, I don't know, dog lovers or whatever, call up 5 of your friends who love dogs and ask them what could be better about the social networks they use. Or if you have an idea for, like I say, I want to get into lawyers or something with referrals. Maybe I should call up a bunch of lawyers and ask them what could help them out. But just like, you really don't need money or some big thing to start a business. And it's usually just one step at a time. Like if you have an idea, just do something right now about it.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of the Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7- and 8-figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where we help startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. And if you ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com and grab some time with us to chat. Now, today we have another great guest on the podcast, Phil Kirkeiner. And Phil is, so originally he was in high school, was very involved with, I think, Drumline and was hardcore into bands and was wanting to be a drummer, even made, I think, his own Dance Revolution step charts for his music, and did that for a period of time, got a scholarship for Drumline to BYU. And on the first day that he was at BYU, felt like music wasn't what he was meant to do or wasn't what he was going to go into. So gave the scholarship back, decided to go into an accounting instead, and then worked for an entrepreneur for a bit of time. And it sounds like it was an interesting entrepreneur. Maybe we'll share a little bit on that. Got the accounting degree, didn't like his internships, did a bit of door-to-door sales during the summer, and then started a couple side hustles, I think, that have started to grow into a bit more of a business that is working, as well as doing a couple other things. So with that much as an introduction, welcome on the podcast, Phil.
Hey, thanks a lot, Devin. Happy to be here. It's fun to hear you tell me that story back to myself. I was like, oh, wow, I've had a life.
That's right. Hey, you've had an impressive life. So maybe taking us back a little bit in time to high school, kind of doing Drumline, being in band, and then or take us through your story a bit.
Yeah, sure. Well, I consider myself a creative person. I mean, I'm not a painter or an artist necessarily, but I really enjoyed playing drums and writing songs and, creating things. And I've always kind of had that with me, even when I was studying accounting in school. I mean, I thought accounting was just a safe career path, but it got really boring really fast because I wasn't really creating anything. But that's kind of why I've been drawn to entrepreneurship, because you can take the business and the numbers side of things and create something in a way that makes money, a lot more money than I could have made doing music. So yeah.
So you did that Drumline. You were talented. You thought that was fun and exciting. You did that throughout high school, and you're obviously good enough to get to the BYU. And that's a accomplishment in and of itself, is to be at that level that they're willing to give you a scholarship and to bring you there. But then walk us through a little bit, because I think when we chatted before, you got to BYU or Brigham Young University, and kind of the first day you just didn't feel good about the Drumline, or what kind of made you decide to switch from doing more of the Drumline to going into accounting?
Yeah, totally. I don't know. I mean, it was one of those things where I really enjoyed Drumline and music, and maybe part of me was afraid that if I made that exclusively what I did for my career, that I wouldn't enjoy it as much anymore. And I liked all of my other classes in school, and I was interested in a whole lot of things. And I don't know, it's just one of those things where I was scared, or maybe I thought that I wouldn't make that much money doing it, but ultimately I just didn't want to pigeonhole myself into that one thing. But it was scary, man. I mean, my teachers from high school, and then all of the professors in the music school, and then my parents and all my friends, and everyone kind of knew me as the Drumline guy. And I guess I was kind of feeding off of their encouragement from it, and I really enjoyed Drumline, but I guess in my heart I just feeling like I didn't want to commit 100% to that and that alone,
Mm.
So
So
painful
now,
few
so
days,
so
but
you say, okay, whether it's a bit scared or you're not sure if you can make a career out of it or where you'll be able to support yourself, kind of making that decision. Okay, while I enjoy it and it's fun and it's an exciting type of thing, I'm going to go in a bit different direction. At that point, how did you decide, that to go into accounting or to make that pivot, or kind of how did you decide? Okay, I'm going to do something different. How did you decide what direction to go?
yeah. Well, this guy that I worked for after my senior year of high school, I had a summer internship working for this guy who got his accounting degree, and he was an entrepreneur, and he ended up going to jail. But um, he told me that with an accounting degree you can do anything because it's this hard skill set, and you understand the numbers, you can make the numbers work for you. Um, and I thought that
So
was
just
cool.
out of just out
I
of pure curiosity, and I know I'm interrupting. Going to jail, was it something to do with accounting or embezzling or something of that nature, or was it unrelated as to why you went to jail?
honestly, I'm still not entirely sure what it was, but it was something fraud related.
All right, fair enough. And
That's what I know.
don't want to name names and don't need to know, but I'm just curious that you can do anything you want to do with accounting, including embezzle money. And that's the first thing that came to mind. So just was curious. But
Yeah.
so anyway, so he kind of, gave you that, feedback and gave you that a bit of that direction and kind of set you on the path to get an accounting degree. Is that right?
Yeah. And to be fair, when I was I did a 2-year mission for my church, and I was in
Mm,
Central America when he was going through all this stuff. So when I left on my mission, it was kind of deciding what I was going to do. I was already had this impression, and it wasn't because he went to jail or anything that I wanted to do this. But
mm,
so anyway, um, I really enjoyed the numbers stuff, and I thought it was really cool to make it all work for you. And just like with drums, I had to practice and get the tools and the fundamentals down before I could,
mm,
join and be a part of a band and create a song um, and make something really cool. I felt like understanding numbers and accounting was all kind of the same way. If I really understood how a business works and, reading the music, like reading the language of business, which is the numbers, like reading music is for drums and everything else. I thought that'd be pretty cool, and it turned out to be really great. I mean, even now, when I think of business ideas, um, I can think of them, in terms of like the actual dollar signs and how everything would work, rather than just thinking this would be so cool. You know,
sure.
um, I think it's been an advantage. I might have lost track of your question, what it was just a minute ago, but
No, you're good, and I think you answered the question. So now you're saying, okay, so you got the accounting, you switched from drumline to accounting degree. You had, the mentor that, while he may have, he gave you good advice, even if he didn't necessarily keep or take his own advice, so to speak. And you get the accounting degree, but I think if I remember when we chatted a bit before the podcast, is that you also you kind of did some internships in accounting and decided that while it's maybe a good career path, it wasn't one that you found exciting or wasn't one that you decided you wanted to do as a career path. Is that about right?
yeah, exactly. I mean, public accounting, the companies that, audit the financial statements of, corporations everywhere. There's kind of this corporate grind culture where you work long hours and you're up late, and there's this busy season. It's just going, going, going. And all you're really doing, it felt like, is just checking boxes to make sure someone else did things right. I didn't feel like there was any sort of creative juices behind it beyond like literally just getting paid to work really hard so that somebody could put, like, at the end of the day, no matter how hard you worked or no matter how great you did, all the work just gets put like a stamp, on the
Mm.
company. That's all it is. And I didn't really get a lot of fulfillment out of that. And so I said, I don't really want to do this, but I'm at the same time, I was super jealous of everybody who really enjoyed it, because if you're good at accounting and you like it, you'll always have a job,
Mm.
and it's very, very predictable. You get you're an accountant, and then you're a controller, then you could be a CFO, and then whatever else. And it's just like, it's very predictable. And that's what traditional accountants like, but
Mm.
um, it's not what I was super attracted to. Part of the hours probably got to me as well. I just didn't like
Mm.
working 70 hours for
So
that.
now you've kind of made a transition a couple times, right? One was from drumline that you did enjoy, but didn't have didn't necessarily, maybe a bit worried or didn't know how that would work with the career and whether or not it would ruin the fun of it, so to speak. And so you say, okay, I'm going to go into accounting. And while you could do accounting, you don't kind of have that same excitement or that same level of fulfillment. So with those kind of things playing, how did you kind of figure out what you wanted to do, or where did you go to from there?
Yeah. So from there, I figured, okay, well, I guess I should say I didn't really do anything super consciously after my accounting internships. It was more like I need money because I'm getting married this summer. So what can I do to make a lot of money? Okay, well, I'm gonna do door-to-door pest control sales because my buddies say I can make a lot of money. Who knows if it's a scam or not? Like it sounds too good to be true. You can make $30 to $70,000 in the summer, but I mean, I think I'm a nice enough guy. I mean, I'm sure I can sell something to these people.
Mm,
And I actually had a really great time. I was out knocking doors. I was working just as many or more hours than I was at Deloitte, but I was out knocking doors outside, talking to people all the time, getting rejected most of the time. People don't like their doors being knocked and being sold something, but and I made way more money doing that in less time than I was getting paid overtime at Deloitte, even um, with my internship in accounting. I said, okay, well, this is clearly a sign. If I like getting doors slammed in my face and I'm better at this than the accounting stuff, then maybe I should do something that's sales related or business related and kind of combine my talents and do something like that.
And so
So
then you went
it's
into
kind of what I
sales,
did.
did that for a period of time. It was realizing that, hey, I need some money. I'm getting, married, got to support, got to have an income and those type of things. But then how did you, I think that I remember, you kind of at the same time you had an experience with opening bank accounts and looking at bonuses and how that might work. And kind of that had started as in parallel to some of the other things you're doing. And that's where you started to have interest or focus on or transition to.
Yep. Yep. Um, so around this time, um, I got connected with some of my accounting friends who were opening up bank accounts very often, and I had no idea why.
Mm,
And uh, I asked them, it's like, hey, why do you have so many bank accounts? Why are you always calling banks? Or you have money troubles? Like, can you use some help? And they said, no, we're actually calling and opening all these bank accounts in these different banks to, get the sign up bonuses. You open an account, you set up your direct deposit, you get $200, and that's it. That's the whole thing. And tons of banks are doing it. So I said, oh, this is really cool. And I was a college student. I was just an accounting intern between semesters, and I said, okay, well, I'm gonna do this. So every single week of my whole 12-week internship, I moved my money into different banks with my paycheck and made like $1,500.
mm,
And I used it to fly back to Central America where I did my mission. I used it to go to Southern California for some skating convention, some like skating meetups and stuff. And I thought it was so cool that I could just have this free kind of money. And that was kind of my first experience with entrepreneurship, I guess I could say, just finding an opportunity and taking advantage of it. And so I got back from school after one of my accounting internships, and then I kind of put together the spreadsheet of every single bank account offer that was being promoted by banks and how much the bonus was and where you needed to live and all the requirements. And then I would tell my buddies about it at BYU because BYU's got people from all over the country, right? I mean, people come there from every state, because it's a church-sponsored school, so there's church members everywhere. And
mm,
so I would filter my spreadsheet to my friends, states and how much money they made, and I just send off a whole bunch of copies of these spreadsheets everywhere.
mm,
Um, until eventually my buddy's like, hey, this is pretty cool. You should make a website out of it. So while I was still at school, my friend Matt and we kind of took all this data that we were collecting in spreadsheets and prototyped out a website where you could go to it. And right now it's called everybankbonus.com.
mm,
And you can just go to the website. You can put in where you live, how much money you make, how much money you have saved, and you can find all of the bank account sign up bonuses on there. They're worth anywhere from $1,000 to $50 each,
mm,
and you can just take advantage. I mean, if you go right now, you could probably search your state and find there's $10,000 worth of free bank sign up bonuses wherever in pretty much any state.
mm,
Um, and it's been awesome. We kind of built it out in school and then finished it up as part of a capstone project and launched it to Reddit. And especially right now with current events, I mean, Reddit can love something and really rally around it or not. Maybe you can see that with the GameStop stocks going crazy today. But in a very much smaller form, this Reddit group rallied around our website and has really been loving it for the past few years. And that was like my first really cool success with entrepreneurship, even if it was just really small. That got me going for sure.
So now I leave it up to the starving college student, so to speak, to figure out how to game the system as far as that to take advantage of the bank bonus. But I think that's an ingenuitive way to make some extra side money or to be able to do a couple extra things. So now as you kind of say, okay, this is one where there's a bit of demand, friends are asking for it, I'll do something there. Now, was the intent to make this kind of just a fun or a side hobby or side hustle? Is it something that you're looking to grow? And kind of what are you doing in the meantime or in addition to that? Is it a full-time gig and you figured out how to monetize it? Is it a hobby and you're working a full-time gig elsewhere? Or how does that work out?
Yeah. So every bank bonus is definitely a side hustle. It doesn't take much time to manage. There's 4 of us that were in a group together that kind of put it together. And now we all have full-time things that we do on the side and just spend a few hours a week making sure the content's up to date, making sure that we're adding, features that people ask for and whatnot. And it generates enough money that it's worth it to us and it can be sustainable. So that's been really fun. And since then, after I graduated and decided I didn't want to go into accounting, I did work for about 1.5 years for the pest control company that I was selling door to door for. I worked for them as a financial analyst after I graduated. And at that point, after having sold all the products, then I got to kind of see the back end of how, all of the operations worked to service all of the pest control customers. And I saw exactly the finances and why people got into the pest control business in the first place, because it's really attractive industry. I mean, pest control is a recurring quarterly service with high margins and lots of really effective sales channels. So I was just really attracted to the industry itself. Learned a ton, made a lot of friends in it. And then my wife's a little bit younger than me. And when she was going to graduate from BYU, we knew that we were going to move away from Utah and somewhere new. So I was kind of planning like, okay, in April of 2020, I'm going to be moving away from Utah and have to figure out what I'm going to do for work since I can't be working at GreenX Pest Control anymore. And at that point, I was, for the whole year before that, the whole time while I was working at GreenX, I was thinking of business opportunities in ways that I could kind of see. Like I was looking for opportunities within the pest control space or within the home services space or within, even the bank bonus space, just kind of finding ways to monetize. And I came across this idea where, all of these pest control companies are paying hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars for inbound sales leads. They're having all these online campaigns to get people to call in to sign up for their service. But the average consumer doesn't know the difference between, general residential pest control versus termite pest control versus bed bug versus, raccoon trapping and other wildlife. And there's all these different, sub-services within pest control. And a lot of pest control companies don't do every single type of service. So all of these companies are spending a ton of money to drive leads when, anywhere from 4 to 10% of them call in and they're unqualified, like they don't do the service that they offer. And no one was, monetizing those calls, even though they're, customers wanting to buy right there. No one was referring them or doing anything with them. And then same thing when customers would call in and they say, hey, I'm a current happy customer, I'm moving to another market. We'd say, well, sorry, we don't service there. It was great knowing you. Goodbye. Or another time if someone calls in, hey, I really want to sign up, but I live, in this city. They say, oh, we don't service that city. Sorry. It's just like all of these times, like paying for customers to call just to tell them no. So I'm like, okay, well, there's got to be an opportunity here. So just how the same kind of way that with the bank bonuses, I saw like, oh, this is something people want, and there's value here with like the free money, I guess. There's money that's getting wasted. I noticed that there's money getting wasted with people calling in to all of these pest control companies that weren't being helped. So what I do full time now is I have a company called Baton, like Pass the Baton, where pest control or other type of companies can, anytime someone calls in and it's unqualified, they can refer that customer to another company and get paid for it, right?
Mm.
So they say, oh, we don't service that area, but let me refer you to someone. We don't do that service, but let me refer you to someone. And that's kind of what we're doing to help them take care of those customers and monetize those interactions a little more. So still young, but got customers. 2021 is looking pretty promising, and that's what I'm up to now, Devin.
Well, cool. So if you were to look kind of forward just a bit and say, okay, next steps, what do you have planned? Where are you going to go? You got a few different ideas. You got the bit of the, the banking bonuses type business that, people are using and can get that information a bit. You've also say, okay, I've got an idea as to how we can monetize or take advantage of the leads that people are working hard to drive and yet aren't able to service, or how you do that. Where do you see the next 6 to 12 months going?
Man, as an entrepreneur, it's like you have this vision, but you never know what could come up, right? Basically, I just want to grow my referral network in the pest control vertical to cover every service across the whole country, and just have a really robust network of companies that any company can just jump into my network and refer to anywhere, right? And then later this fall, once we really nailed the network and the processes, invest heavily in just getting people in and growing the heck out of it. But for the next probably 6 months to 12 months, it's all about just dialing in the processes and gathering data and making our first customers happy before we, take that solid brand and business model and just ramp it up. And then secondly, I'm looking into the lawyer space too. I feel like lawyers refer customers to each other all the time, and there's sometimes that lawyers don't know someone in their network who they can refer to in the moment. And I know lawyers pay a ton of money for leads, so maybe there's an opportunity there, but I don't know yet. But if this pest control stuff goes well, maybe I'll dig into the law sector. I don't know.
Cool. Well, sounds like a lot of different opportunities, a lot of directions that you can take and grow the businesses and expand into different verticals. So, well, as we start to wrap up the podcast, and I always ask 2 questions at the end of each podcast, so we'll jump to those now. So the first question is, so along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made, and what did you learn from it?
Oh man, the worst one I ever made. I haven't done anything too high stakes yet, but probably the worst business decision I made would have been when we launched every bank bonus to Reddit. We were just like super not optimized, and I probably missed out on building a mailing list. Well, I didn't ask anybody for their emails, so we had like 15 or 20,000 hits like right away when we launched this thing, and I didn't capture anybody's email address. And looking back, like the growth ever since then has been like super, kind of slow. But I feel like had I just thought a little more, I feel like every bank bonus would be probably 2 or 3 times the traffic or size it is. Had I been a little more, methodical about how we launched, I just think it was kind of poor. But it all worked out in the end. But that was probably the biggest thing I missed out on was the opportunity cost of that.
No, and I think that, but it's an easy one. You're just saying, hey, it's cool, it's exciting. I think people will like it, and you don't necessarily think of now, how do I monetize it, or how do I capture people, or how do I leverage people coming to the site? So I think it's a good lesson to learn of, one thing I learned as we brought on some marketing people is always kind of have a call to action, right? Something that you want somebody to do. And I think to your point is, one of the things is to capture that information such that you're able to provide other services or give them notifications or updates or anything else of that nature. Second question I always ask is, if you're now talking to someone that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what would be the one piece of advice you'd give them?
I just say start now. Do something. The worst thing you can do when you're trying to start a business is just, be all in your head and doubting and feel like there's some big barrier to entry to do it. Like if you have a business idea, do the smallest possible next step towards it, just right away. If you think that you want to start like a new social network or something for, I don't know, dog lovers or whatever, call up 5 of your friends who love dogs and ask them what could be better about the social networks they use. Or if you have an idea for, like I say, I want to get into lawyers or something with referrals. Maybe I should call up a bunch of lawyers and ask them what could help them out. But just like, you really don't need money or some big thing to start a business. And it's usually just one step at a time. Like if you have an idea, just do something right now about it.
All right. Well, fair enough. Well, I think that's great advice, and it's honestly in different forms. I think that's the most common advice that entrepreneurs have to other people. If you're talking to someone saying, "Get going, figure it out, don't worry about it, don't be afraid," and those type things, because you'll either find you love it and you'll have opportunities, you'll create it, or you'll say, "Hey, this isn't a good idea," and you'll move on and whatnot. But I think getting going is oftentimes the best place to start. Well, as we wrap up, people want to reach out to you. They want to find out more. They want to use your, either of your companies. They want to be clients. They want to be investors. They want to be employees. They want to be your next best friend. Any or all of the above.
Wow.
What's the best way to reach out and connect up with you?
Totally. You can send me an email at phil@batonleads.com. Baton, like BATON, leads.com. That's probably the best way. Or you can hit me up on Facebook, Phil Kirkeiner. I'm the only Phil Kirkeiner on all of Facebook. So hit me up.
All right. Hey, well, that's something in and of itself, to be the only one on Facebook with all of us users. So there you go. Well, before we wrap up, we do have the bonus question that Phil has to ask his top intellectual property question. So for all of your listeners, if you want to stick around, listen after we wrap up, definitely can hear that question and that answer. Otherwise, if you for the normal podcast listeners, if you have your own journey to tell and you want to come on and be a guest on the podcast, feel free to go to inventiveguest.com, apply to be on the show. If you're a listener, also make sure to click subscribe on wherever you listen to the podcast. And 2, leave us a review so new people can find out about the great podcast. Last but not least, if you have any needs for patents or trademarks or anything, reach out to us by going to strategymeeting.com, and we're always here to help. Thank you again, Phil, if you'll hold on, and appreciate you coming on.
No, yeah, I'm super happy for it. Thank you.
Absolutely. So now that we've wrapped up the normal podcast, you indicated that you wanted to do the bonus question, which is asking your top intellectual property, whether it's patents, trademarks, or other things, asking your top question, and we'll have a quick conversation about that. So with that, I'll turn it over to you you get to ask me a question. I don't get to pepper you with any more questions, but what's your top intellectual property question? Yeah,
sure. I don't know. I mean, none of my businesses have some sort of like really cool new invention, right? They don't have like I didn't reinvent the wheel for anything that I would think to patent. But for example, my name of the company is Baton, and it's a pretty common word. I mean, is it worth something that I should trademark it right away? And if so, then how? And or like even for every bank bonus, I mean, I don't expect a lot of people to use every bank bonus, but like, do I need to trademark that, or what's the risk there?
Yeah, so I think that the general genesis of the question, or the way I'd answer the question, is when you're looking at whether or not you trademark something. So trademarks go towards a brand, right? So if you think of Nike, you're thinking of Apple, you're thinking of Pepsi, Coke, M&M, Starbucks, whatever it is, there's a lot of different brands out there, and they have a lot of their value tied up in the brand. And so when you're looking at intellectual property in general, including trademarks, it's really, where do you see the value of your business? Meaning, are you trying to create, the world's best widget? And if that's the case, you're going to go more towards a patent. If you're going to create the next great iPhone or whatever it might be, then you'll patent it because that's the value of the business. But on the other hand, you're saying, what I'm really looking to do is build a brand brand around this business. So when people are looking for leads, they go to, and they're in the pest control business, or if you branch into the legal business, then they're saying, okay, we go to the Baton Leads because they're a great lead generation place. And if you're saying that's where we're a value of the business is, then you're going to want to protect it so that other people don't start using the same name or similar names and start to or leverage off or try and play off of your brand name. So that's generally, whether or not you should go to get a trademark or any intellectual property is really saying what are we doing or is our business. And if it's in the brand or branding space and you're wanting to make sure that as you grow the brand, that you have it protected, that's when you jump onto it. And vice versa. If you're saying, no, there's a whole bunch of companies and we're going to just beat them on, SEO. So we'll just make sure we're the top ranked one and we don't care about, branding. And if somebody else has the same brand, they're not going to beat us on search engine optimization, then it's probably less important. So that's kind of how I would start to tackle it, is depending on if you're seeing that either you have value now and you have customers that are starting to associate with the brand, or that's a plan for where you're going to build a value into the business, then you definitely want to look at getting it, protecting that brand, given that that's where the value is.
Cool. Is it ever too late to protect it?
Usually if it's too late, it's because somebody else has already protected it. Meaning, one is, let's say you started to build a brand and either by happenstance or because somebody liked your brand, they went and filed it first. Well, then generally it's much more difficult if somebody else goes and files a trademark first for you to be able to get a brand on it yourself. So let's say Baton Leads takes off, has 1 million clients, 1 million customers, hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue, as an example, and hopefully it does someday. But you never register the trademark, and somebody else comes and registers a trademark. Then what can happen is that they can start to box you out of places across the U.S. So let's say, as an example, Baton Leads only focused on Utah, and that was a place that it was going to generate all the leads. That's where it had all the connections. But now, and so you never registered it, you keep using in Utah. And somebody else goes and files a trademark for the federal registration for Baton Leads. If they were to get that file on it first, they get the trademark, you can keep using that same trademark in Utah because that's where you've already been using it, but you can't expand out. So you can't go to any other states, you couldn't grow the business, and you're kind of stuck there because you don't have the rights to that name for anything outside of where you were using it prior to somebody else filing on it. So that's one of the things, is sometimes being too late if somebody else files on it first. The other thing is that if you don't want to get into it to where you built it. If somebody else, let's say, had already filed on Baton Leads, so unbeknownst to you, somebody else already owns that name, they've already filed on it, they already have a trademark, and then you start building a brand on it, and then you go years, build a brand, everybody knows it, it's a well-known brand, and then they come along and say, well, you don't own it, and now you're infringing our rights to our trademark. Then you have to rebrand you'll have to rebrand your business, or you have to work out a deal or licensing from them, all of which can be very costly and time intensive in order to try and rebrand or to pay them off or acquire their brand. And so those are kind of the two times, is, when is it too late? Well, if somebody else has already trademarked it, it can be difficult. Or if somebody else, because they either by happenstance or because they like your brand, trademarks it first, those are both issues where it can be too late and it creates some issues.
That makes sense. That's why there's lawyers like you who go out and make sure there's no problems.
That's the mission, or that's the goal. So, well, perfect.
Awesome.
We'll appreciate the bonus question. Great question. And if anybody else has any other, if you or anybody else ever has any other questions, feel free to go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time for us to chat with us. We're always happy to help. Now, as we wrap up the podcast, I want to thank you again, Phil, for coming on. It's been a pleasure. It's been fun, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you very much, Devin. I'm super grateful for the opportunity. It was good to talk.
My pleasure. Thank you.